to start by just giving you my mantra. I want to just start out telling you my mantra in life, my mantra in art, and all the movies that I make, and the writings, the books that I write. I have a mantra, and I live my life by this mantra. You ready for it? All right, the mantra is, what is a mantra? It's like a slogan that you live by, words that you live by. And so my mantra is, if I make an observation, I have an obligation. That's the word, those are the words I live by. What does that mean? That means when you see something, right? When you observe something, it's not enough to just observe it and recognize that there's a problem or something. You have to become a part of the solution, right? And everything. So sometimes you might see something and wonder, well, why is there no this? Or how come this doesn't exist? The answer is simple. It's because you didn't create it yet. And so when you make those observations, you have an obligation to fill that void, whatever it is. Now, as an artist, I remember the first time I transformed an observation into an obligation. I was actually in school. I was around your age. I was maybe in high school. You got any high schoolers in here? Okay, cool. I was in high school, and the education that I was getting, I grew up in Philadelphia. And I'll tell you about how I grew up in a little bit. But I was in this school in Philadelphia, and the education I was getting didn't match who I was as a person, as an African American, as a young black man. The things that they were teaching me didn't resonate. They didn't teach me about my history and my culture, so I didn't know who I was. And when I started learning about who I was, I felt some type of way about that. That's what we say in Philly. I felt some type of way about that, right? I was upset, and so I wrote a poem called 2 Sets of Notes. And this was the first time I can remember consciously transforming an observation into an obligation. The obligation was the poem. So I'm going to read 2 sets of notes for you, and it goes something like this. I find myself feeling as if I'm touching the ground and the ceiling. In schools that don't engage in healing, they simply open the wounds and entrap me in rooms where I am consumed by hypocrisy. But even Greek philosophers weren't the authors of their own philosophies. And the statues at school be watching me. Washington, Jefferson, Williams clocking me as if to say, your time's up. But I don't run laps on track. See, I run laps around the scholars of tomorrow because their new schools of thought are merely our history's borrowed. And they label me militant and black national radical, trying to put my learning process on sabbatical. But I don't apologize. I speak truth into those eyes that have been infected by those lies. Then they try to get me to see their point of view from a cat that looked like me. But he don't walk like me, talk like me, or act like me. And homie started running when I asked if he was black like me, mastering their thoughts and forgetting our own. And you wonder why we always feel alone. From the media to academia, hanging brothers like coats. That's why in they schools, I always take 2 sets of notes. 1 set to 2 sets of notes. 1 set to ace the test, and the other set I call the truth. And when I find historical contradictions, I use that first set as proof. Proof that black youth's minds are being polluted and convoluted and diluted and not culturally rooted in anything except the Western massacre. That's why most of us in school, we were scared of Africa. We viewed our mother's land through the eyes of racists like David Hume and Immanuel Kant. Well, Immanuel Kant tell me jack about a land he's never seen, a land rich with history, beautiful kings and queens. But they had us believe otherwise. The history they taught was built on high-rise lies. They didn't teach me that the pyramids were completed before Greece and Rome were conceptualized. Then they tried to claim that the Egyptians' race was a mystery, and I believed them until I went to Egypt and read Herodotus, book 2 of the histories. Can it be any clearer? Black students, look in the mirror. You are a reflection of divinity. Don't let them fool you with selective memory. Walk high, listen to the elders that spoke. Black students, always take 2 sets of notes. Feel me? I appreciate that. So I started writing at a young age. I found my passion when I was young. And it took me a while. You know, every time you see someone who's successful, you know that there's been a journey to get to where they got, you know? So you see me now, but when I was your age, as Dr. Hall referred to, as the host Rashidi referred to, when I was your age, I never knew I would be here. I never knew that life would take me on this journey. My brother was incarcerated. He was in solitary confinement. My mom was in a mental institution. My sister was in a mental institution. My father left. I was alone in Philadelphia, North Philadelphia, in my teenage years. And, you know, adversity at every step. But one of the things that I think saved me was finding that passion, finding that purpose, something that I cared about, something that I wanted to do. And that's what you guys have to find. That's what everyone has to find. And it's not it's about what you love doing. It's about serving others. For me, I've been kicked out of every school in Philly. Been kicked out of 3 schools. I was not in school. My mom was disappointed in me. My dad was disappointed in me. Family members were disappointed in me. My mom got sick one day, and I went to visit her in the hospital. She had overdosed. She tried to commit suicide. And when I got to the hospital, she asked me, she said, you know, will you go to school? You know, she says, you know, you and your brother, you're killing me. You know, will you go to school? And I said, yeah, you know, if I would go to a school, if I could get into a school, because at that point, I couldn't even get in, no school would take me. And she said, well, what about if I found a school that would take you? Would you go? And I said, well, yeah, you know, I would. And so she found a school, an alternative school. This is like last ditch school, you know, after you've been kicked out of everywhere, this is the last place you go basically before jail. And so I get to this school, and it's an alternative school. It's called Crefeld. It's in Philadelphia, and changed my life. You know, I'll tell you the story that actually what happened. I was in class, and you know, a lot for me, you know, school at that point, I was going to schools that had metal detectors and cops in the hallways, and people were getting arrested all the time in school, and it wasn't a very learning, wasn't an environment conducive to learning. And so school to me was always, it wasn't about education. It was about order and discipline, and I didn't understand that. But when I got to Crefeld, this alternative school, things changed. I took this class, and the teacher, in the beginning of class, put blank pieces of paper in front of all of us. And then she told us to write. Now, I hadn't done schoolwork for a long time at this point, so I wasn't doing the assignment. You know, I was just chilling. And then she came over to me and she said, you know, I want you to write. I said, well, what you want me to write? You know, I was kind of frustrated. I had an attitude problem. What you want me to write, yo? She's like, you know what I mean? I smirked. I had my face all scrunched up. What you want me to write, yo? She's like, write anything you want. Anything I want. This was a new concept to me. School had always been about just following orders. So when she told me I could write anything I want, I'm looking at this blank page and I'm seeing other kids writing their stories and writing ideas down and writing about their life. And then I'm thinking about my life and everything I've been through and everything I have to say and all these ideas that I have to get out. It really empowered me. That moment changed my life. And then I began to see myself in that blank page. And that's what I see when I look at all of you. We are all blank pages. Every day you wake up, you're a blank page. You can write whatever you want. You write your own script in life. And that's what I learned, that I am this blank page. I'm not only going to write on this blank page whatever I want, I'm going to use this blank page as a metaphor for my life. And I'm going to write what I want with my life and write my own script. Because you don't want to follow somebody else's script.